From century-dead ancestors, a family curse reaches out to hunt Abu, claiming first his mother and turning his community against him. Even his status as a pharmacist in the small town of Umoti does not give him what he craved most, the respect of society and the affection of women. He battles his demons of mental health and sexual addiction while negotiating herds of caste discrimination and ruthless cults. But it is this alliance with the malignant widow, Mama G, that takes him to the precipice and puts him on the radar of investigative journalist Akpo Bumre. Now, this is the background in which Distortion is set. It's a captivating work that delves into the human mind and challenges taboos around the Osu caste system, widowhood, baby-making factories, child trafficking, gender-based violence, and more. Set against the backdrop of Nigeria's rich cultural belief systems, politics, religions, and family values, Distortion is based on authors Ejiro Umukoro's experiences as an investigative journalist and media mentor. Hello, and welcome to Literati, where we delve into the world of literature, African stories, and showcasing the brightest and rising African storytellers, poets, and writers. I'm your host, Judith Atibi. My guest on today's show is Ejiro Umukoro. She's an author. She's the author of Distortion, which we're going to be discussing today. She is a multi-award winning broadcaster and investigative journalist. She was nominated for ICF Knights Award and was an awardee and fellow of the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Reporting Women Leadership Program, won at Data MVP 2018, and winner of British Council International Communications entrepreneur representing Nigeria at the Global Awards in the UK. Umukoro has served as a mentor with ICIR MacArthur Foundation Capacity Building for Journalists and the Pioneer General Manager of Mega 98.1 FM Warri. Ejiro, many thanks for having you, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Judith. At a point, I wondered, okay, the journey just began and somehow it was summed up. But it's great to be here with you on Literati.
Great to have you, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I should start by saying congratulations are in order for the book. I understand that it's now been listed for the senior secondary school curricula for literature.
Absolutely.
For Delta State.
Yes.
That is huge.
It's a big one, and I really want to thank the Ministry of Education and the Delta State government for considering the book for the value it gives, especially when you understand that this book came because there was a lot of issues that was happening in Delta State.
Which we're going to get into, by the way, but I mean, let's just say congratulations. And also, how does it feel? You are now joining the greats whose debut book, all right?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Are, and, I mean, the likes of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, as well as, Chinua Achebe and the rest, their books in the curriculum, and also yours as well. How do you feel?
I'm just
to be shaping the
humbled,
minds.
grateful, and yes, and I like the way you said it. Because at the end of the day, it's about what are you feeding the mind. When you empower the mind with the right information, you re-engineer how people see things, how they think, and even how they make informed decisions and choices.
Right.
So story is where they hide. Like they say, if you want to hide anything from, I hate that expression, although they attribute it to Malcolm X. But the thing is, can we even tell ourselves and say, come on, enough of that already.
Right.
Let's show that we know what we see in the books.
Look,
and we do love books and we love reading as a culture.
We actually do love reading as a culture, but away from reading, I must also, reeling out your bio, it's very clear that you have an extensive years of experience and a wonderful one, might I add, in investigative journalism, right? And so it made me, when I was reading, I was like, how, it intrigues me. How does one switch gears from writing, very reality, like real life scenarios, real life issues, going behind the scenes and being able to write that and then switch gears into fiction, And with all the techniques that come with fiction, it's a lot different from writing every single day and all the stories that you tell. But how easy? Was it easy or hard?
I think it was a beautiful transition.
Ha, there we go.
If you're a beat reporter, you may not connect easily with it. You feel that because beat reporting has a very routine-like strategy with regards to just telling about an incident. But I was more connected to what we call long-form journalism. It's a type of narrative journalism. I like telling details. Don't give me and ask me, Ejiro, write short story, or rather, Ejiro, write short sentences and be brevity about it. Don't give me brevity. I am not brevity. I am the total package. Like, I give you everything and I pour it all out. So investigative journalism, long form style was my thing. And if I was going to tell any story, that had to create one, address a root cause, identify the players, understand the entire process, the gamut of what is involved, and then understand the sequencing about the solutions, because I've always been solutions driven. So what's the solution here? So by the time you take all my pieces of written investigative work, for those who want to Google and just find out, you understand that when you pick my investigative piece, just sit down and read a delicious, well-written story.
I mean,
so it's all about
awards.
storytelling.
Hence the awards, I would say. Which takes me to my next question, of course, of storytelling. Distortion. Whew. Yeah, I think I fell into a deep depression after.
You did.
And
the job is done.
I did fall into a depression. So I mean, I already know why, but for the sake of our viewers at home, tell us. Let's talk about Distortion. What inspired the book?
I found the tapestry of Nigeria one filled with a lot of distortion. When I began writing the story, I would tell you the title emerged. This was not the original title, Distortion.
What was the original title?
It was Out of Favor. Out of Favor. That was where it began. I wanted to tell the story of a Nigerian person. It could be a man, it could be a woman, it didn't matter. I just wanted to understand the fact that when COVID-19 hit, the profoundness of the distortionness in the Nigerian system became negatively like an upheaval that was a pandemic within a pandemic. And then I saw a situation where, because I was documenting stories beyond just Nigeria, I now discovered that it was a universal problem. That there's a distortion going around the world where what is normal is becoming abnormal, where the proper things are no longer in alignment. So I give you an example, because I worked with a number of agencies in Nigeria who had to do with child abuse and stuff like that. You see a situation where a father with two daughters had the audacity to say because his wife is dead during the COVID-19, and prior to just that time, he had turned them into his wife, having carnal knowledge of his children between the ages of 12 and 16. He had them for that period of 4 years till he was caught under COVID-19. So that's one form of the distortion. Then you see people experiencing, like I tell people, anytime I come to Lagos, I have this experience that Lagos is a traumatized zone. Like I feel re-traumatized when I'm here. And people don't get it. But I see people, look at facial expressions of people when they walk around. You will see tension. You will see a certain hardness. You will see confusion. You will see annoyance. You will see even irritation in the conversations of people when they move on the roads, when they have conversations, even in the offices. And then I realized, oh my God, we are a highly traumatized society, and mental health became one of the greatest conversations of the COVID-19 lockdown. People were beginning to show evidence of all the bottled up stress that they were going through and how they are fighting society against the individual. So in Nigeria here, you see the individual who is honest worker, he's not rewarded. You see the creative person, the space for them to have that self-expression is not there. You see people jackmine, that's a distortion. In a country where there's abundance, where everything exists, that you'll have no lack. As a country, Nigeria has no lack as a country. But then because of how we've distorted the systems, the processes, our engagement, our arrangement with how we get things done and make things work, we're living in a distorted society where we're suffering from the Stockholm syndrome of re-trauma and being re-traumatized.
Re-trauma and being re-traumatized. That is something should be on a sticker, if you know what I mean. It should be on a sticker. And that takes me to my next question. You said you drew out of your years of experience as an investigative journalist. And it makes me wonder, drawing inspiration from that experience, was it traumatizing for you as well? Just being able to think about, in the writing process, because you're able to touch very heavy themes in this book. And what you just, said from your answer, they're very, very heavy theme. Did it take an emotional toll from you?
It did.
In drawing from that?
It did.
I mean, even just working in news is very...
Yeah, it did.
I'm tired, Joe.
After a while. Because one, it's a mentally draining job. It saps your brain cells. It questions your inner ability to dive deep inside of you, to tap not only your passion, but also question your why. So if you don't live within the purpose of what you're doing in the media, you're going to get drained. And then if it's not a satisfying job, which is part of what the conversation of mental health is, if you don't find your job satisfying, it is stressful, you begin to break down, you don't know you're even in a depressed state. For me, when I covered, for example, if you Google Yahoo does not give us money, or rather, ritual does not give us money. If you Google female students in secondary school being lured into cultism by Ejiro Umukoro, just Google all of that.
We're going to get into that.
What you will see is a situation when I discovered that in telling these very traumatic stories, because I also had to discover the sites where the girls' bodies, whose organs were taken in the process of these boys who engage in this, I had to find the sites where they were located. And then I created a data visualization map that helped us identify how these guys were able to navigate the spaces, where they got to, the places they lured them, how they took them off, and where they now went to see whoever was supposed to do the incantations or whatever they had needed to do. All of that, then the children, when I had to go undercover to see how young girls, female students, were being recruited aggressively into cultism, because I got a data that showed that one girl, one of the initiation process required of her as a cultist member was that 10 to 14 boys were going to rape her as the initiation rite. And it's not one person. This is not just only in the south. It's happening in the northern part of Nigeria. It's happening in the southern part of Nigeria. It's pervasive. And children are going to meet friends, their peers, to save them from teachers who are abusive, authoritative, and you abuse power in the spaces where they find themselves. Children do not feel comfortable talking about their problems at home to their mothers, to their fathers, because they're not even present to be there to talk to them.
I've always maintained that teenagers are by far the most horrible human beings in the face. I mean, and not to say that they are
I
bad,
see where you're coming from.
You see where I'm coming from? Like, because the way the frontal lobe of their brains are not yet developed as they ought to be, they're by far the most cruel, because they are on the precipice or at the cusp of adulthood, and so they're very cruel. They don't have the critical judgment that you should have as an adult. There's just so much that they still have a lot of environmental factors and the biological factors that they're dealing with. So much is happening with their brains, and it's a horrible time to be, a horrible time for any human being as well. I can only imagine.
And it's worse when you don't have the parental background. Many parents have no business parenting and having children. Let us establish that. That's what Distortion revealed to me, that people who are parents have no business being parents. You have no business being a mother or a father to a child if you will not come home, look at their assignments. If you not come home, sit down with them and have a conversation. Because when we did a survey, because I carried out some research work, and I wanted to hear from the children why this was a prevalent thing for them.
Right.
And one of the so many identifiers were pointed out. One, I cannot talk to my mommy. I cannot talk to my daddy. Two, my mommy and daddy don't come home early enough. I don't even see them sometimes. Three, you want me to tell my mommy so that my mommy come and kill me. Right? Then we had incidences where there was a one way I covered where a woman, during the height of it, a woman whose son dropped her phone, her whatever Android phone that is maybe 100,000 naira then, that she bought. The phone dropped mistakenly from his hand. He's 10 years old. You know what this mother did?
It was brutalized.
The mother went into the kitchen, brought a pot of boiling water and poured it on her 10-year-old son because the phone fell from his hand and it cracked.
We're going to get into all the stories after the
So
break. It's quite a lot. We're going to get into it. What's very interesting, I'm very intrigued to find out if any of the experiences you had, sort of, and the characters that you met or people that you met, sort of developed into characters that we find in this book. We're going to get into that. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Literati. My name is Judith Atibi. My guest today is Ejiro Umukoro. She is the author of Distortion. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
You're watching Literati right here on News Central TV. My name is Judith Atibi. My guest today is Ejiro Umukoro. And if you missed the first half of the show, I don't know where you were. I don't know. But you're in luck because there's still more. We're discussing the book Distortion. It's a debut book, by the way, released in 2020, just after the height of, or rather, right in the thick of the pandemic. And we're talking about all of the characterization, the plot and everything is. And if you missed it, she said earlier before the break that her journey as an investigative journalist was what informed and inspired this story, which we're going to get into. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
So the characterization in Distortion is very multi-layered, right? And I can see that it helped in weaving, the narrative about how certain, practices in the society, which you were talking about earlier, can distort the lives of some of, its citizens. And one of these characters is the protagonist, which is Abu. I cannot help but ask, was Abu self-destructive?
Ooh, that's why the book is Distortion.
Because it's like there are many decisions he's making. I'm like, okay.
Are you thinking?
Are you okay? Are you not? I can do that. I can do it on television. Like, is he? All right. Well, I will let you answer the question. But was he self-destructive? Was this intentional? And also, in terms of human beings as well, sometimes we cannot help ourselves, can we?
I've always been fascinated by the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is about self-sabotage, self-fulfilling prophecy. Many people do not know that whatever they are doing today, how they are going about it, is actually the thought of their own self-fulfilling prophecy. People used to want to say, oh, now my ancestors, people waiting for my family lineage, or the people waiting for village. Re-examine your own thinking, the patterns in your head. You'll be shocked how much your own self-fulfilling thoughts, ideas, the things you conceive, the emotions you allow to build up in you, when you don't manage them, and then if you not allow yourself to be in an environment that triggers you, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. So Abu, everybody I know who have ever read Distortion always said that Abu was something that broke them in pieces.
I said I fell into a deep depression, or you don't understand.
Because it hits at the core of something about you that you need to start re-examining. Because Abu is any one of us.
Right.
If push comes to shove, you don't know the animal you become.
Right.
And now in Nigeria, we're becoming an animal. The animal we're manifesting is an animal under pressure, an animal that is becoming distorted and twisted, where you have the law enforcement, where you have the power of leadership at the back of the neck of its people. They are writhing under that pressure and they are crying, I cannot breathe. And rather than help them get out of where they are, instead you tie their hands further, you twist them further. And that's what happened to Abu.
But I can't help but ask if all these characters and all this, the stories that you write there, where the events and the characters you encountered, did they come from your surge as an investigative journalist?
All of them did. Incidentally, the lady in question that married Abu is alive. She exists.
Wow.
I had to go to Port Novo to meet her because I wanted to tell the Osu caste story. For me, the biggest goal I want Distortion to do, apart from introducing young Nigerians to what investigative journalism as a career is, that it's exciting, it can solve society problems, and within it is where communications development occurs. Because I want a generation of young people to become more journalistic driven, because we don't have this kind of media we need, and we need voices, and children are the next generation of voices. What I now did with her was because of what the experience she had as an Osu person, in quote, in a society in eastern Nigeria, where you say another person is subhuman. We say American racism is one of the worst kind of racism, or European racism is one of the worst kind. But are we seeing the level of our tribalism that we're playing out? That's a distortion. Are we seeing how we, within the same tribe, you're telling me that somebody is of a lower caste? They are subhumans. And so therefore, when people fall in love, that's why the opening book chapter is everything, is the groundwork of how every distortive manifestation began to play out in the book and in by extension, Nigeria. A lady cannot marry somebody she loves because she's an Osu caste, in quote. Meanwhile, there's a 1956 law that says that nobody should be called an Osu. So this conversation is about the Eastern Nigeria taking this matter of Osu and stopping it. It is pejorative, it is tribalistic, it is a human rights offense. It is a crime against another human to tell that person you're subnormal or subhuman.
Subhuman. I'm very surprised to find out that this actually still exists. And I'm like, in the year of our Lord 2024, in the time of technological advancement like never before, we still have situations such as these still existing just at the phrase of our society. That really got me in a bind. But away from that, let's talk about your writing and how you were able to, I mean, this talks about, motherhood, bribery and corruption, fake drugs, child labor, rape, child trafficking, human ritual, just exposing the soft underbelly of the Nigerian community. And you achieved this through dialogue and very rich imageries as well. And I gotta ask, what were you reading at the time? How were you able to manage in doing this and writing this?
I love fantastic dialogue, because when you tell a story and you hear people make a conversation, we reveal the innermost thoughts, the nuances beneath the language, even the mental streaming that happens, these subconscious levels of stream of consciousness that plays out. That
small voice that you're narrating in your head.
Good. And I am one person growing up as a child who was always in my head. In fact, I wrote my first book at 13 because I was told I could not pursue anything related to creative writing. What happened was, I was a little girl struggling in the midst of people who were different from me on so many levels, from what I call my gifts to even how my personality is. It was not the norm. And one of the things I started doing when I say I wrote a book was because I was always good at writing down incidences, how they happen, the details of them. And because I see the power of storytelling, I don't know how many people know this book called Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. That was a book that got me into the space of how you can use a book to give power to the individual, to deal with society and power and government, and yet be able to survive intact. After reading that book, and knowing how much I enjoy any novel that has great conversation, because it's about the people. What are they saying? What are they doing? Why are they acting the way they do?
And conversation carries the story.
Exactly, and that's what got me into using that lots of dialogue in the conversation.
Earlier on, you were talking about your investigative report and expose, especially on female students in Delta State, were being aggressively recruited by cultists, and it inspired the Delta State government, Ministry of Education at the time, to declare a state of emergency on the growing menace of cultism. And now with the introduction of this book, Distortion, into the curricula, what are your hopes for the schoolgirls and boys in general, especially in that region of the country?
There's no child that will read that book and will go away not feeling empowered. My goal is that I want every Nigerian child to know that they have the ability to say no. And I mean no to anything. If somebody is pressuring you to do what you don't want, you have the power to say no. I want the Nigerian child to have a voice. You have a voice, there is the Child's Right Act, there's the VAP law, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and then you as a child, you're a universal being. You're just small, but you have the capacity. Speak up, don't keep it in here. And that's why every child should get this book for their literature study, and we have an IT model, where AI-driven model that we're even developing, so that anybody can even have access to it as long as they have a computer.
Ejiro, many thanks for coming on, and congratulations again on the book. I am so, you've inspired me. You know
Thank you so much, Judith.
Even though I don't know if I would ever write, even though I've been asked many times by authors and friends alike who are authors to write, I don't think I want to put pen to paper yet.
Maybe I would just be your muse to make that happen.
Yeah, there we go. But once again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I cannot wait to see, how this, just helps in forging our education system ahead.
I look forward to that too.
Well done again.
Thank you so much, Judith.
This is Literati right here on News Central TV. My name is Judith Atibi. My guest today has been Ejiro Umukoro. She is the author of Distortion. We're talking more about her book, writing, and now it being listed in the curricula for senior secondary school students in Delta State, South Nigeria. Until next time, I'll see you again on Literati. It's goodbye and good night from me. Bye now.